Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of anywhere else? And that's because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time, they talk down to us, they think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. So we're watching a clip of First Things First, where I guess he's reintroducing his QB categories. So if you remember from yesterday, he randomly gave this graphic that Chris, that Broussard and Wilds were going nuts, okay? And I went nuts and I was just like, what is this? This is insane. So, but they didn't get a chance to actually talk about it more because I think it threw everyone off guard. Now that they obviously have coach there and that they're ready to go, I'm really curious to see how they break this down further. So let's take a listen and we'll go from there.
Drafting you to be a force multiplier. So these are the guys.
Zach Wilson,
so no,
Lance,
those guys, right? But those guys have brew. Those guys played and proved they weren't.
Okay.
So now go to potential force multipliers.
Okay, this is better.
I'm now Anthony Richardson, for all intents and purposes, hasn't played. He played a couple games, and then those three guys are going to go top 5. They're being drafted to be force multipliers. Okay.
Okay.
And now this is the group of guys who I flatly would not pay top dollar. These are solid starters, coach, not force multipliers. Dak, Jalen, Kyler, Kirk, the current iteration of Aaron Rodgers, Goff, Tua, Baker, Geno, Purdy. You can win with these guys if they have a stacked team around them. But once you have to actually pay them, you can't. So that is where I have Tua and coach.
Much better.
Before these guys go.
Nick is all over the place, and I want to let them go too. I just want to real quick. He was literally talking about Dak being the MVP and how Brock Purdy was not the MVP and was just an okay quarterback. Now they're technically on the same level, in the same category, but one played better than the other, and yet, aka Brock Purdy, but yet he's not even remotely in consideration for the MVP, according to Nick. But Dak is. And Dak is somehow the most valuable player and was going to go to the Super Bowl last season, according to Nick, but not a force multiplier. Please make that make sense. And again, I just want to add, the fact that you think that Purdy, Dak, hurts, and I understand Rodgers because Rodgers is older, is on the same level, in the same category as Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield is insane to me. Absolute insanity to me. And the fact that you have even Trevor Lawrence ahead of someone like Hurts, who's actually gone to a Super Bowl, who's actually had legitimate success in the NFL. And I think Trevor Lawrence could be a good quarterback. But it's just absurd. And someone came to me in the comments and said, I'm too hung up on Hurts, from an outlier performance because he had literally the second best performance in the Super Bowl. Was it an outlier performance to have the most wins, consecutive wins against winning teams? Because Jalen Hurts has that. Jalen Hurts is second only to Patrick Mahomes, above Tom Brady in win percentage when trailing by 10 points. So this whole idea that Jalen Hurts is not a great quarterback, I'm not putting Jalen Hurts on the level necessarily as a Patrick Mahomes, as a Joe Burrow or a Josh Allen. But to act like he's in the same tier as Tua, Baker, Geno Smith, that he's below Richardson, these players, these athletes have never even played yet, below the Prince, is just absurd. Absolutely absurd. It just makes no sense to me. And again, I just love how he also wants to ridicule Josh Allen for the lack of success, but then puts him in the same category as Patrick Mahomes. I can't make it make sense.
That's what I would have done yesterday. You guys didn't give me time.
It's a whole new graphic.
No.
Because instead of force multipliers, he had stars.
Stars. Well,
okay, that's a big difference.
Okay, but well, Coach, I use Coach verbiage because Coach is here out of respect to his return. Coach, how do you feel about those categories?
First of all, I love that you're using force multipliers. Like that in itself makes this an outstanding segment.
There we go.
And graphic.
My guy.
So that part. It's definitely not your worst one. We've seen way worse.
Thank you.
No, that was yesterday.
Mahomes Mountain, yeah, and I'm sorry I missed that one. But I do have some issues with this one, the way it's aligned. Okay, and let me just talk about Anthony Richardson. I know you say he hasn't really played.
He hasn't played.
He played 4 games, and 3 of the 4 games he had 11 or less completion.
Okay,
so
he got hurt
it's
in 2
not
of them.
it's not a giant piece, but all the other ones haven't played at all. I get it. It's the potential bet.
Yes.
But so far, the early returns, you weren't exactly jumping off the page.
Meanwhile, Brock's been in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Brock has been to the Super Bowl. And then Derek Carr's not even on this list. And really, Derek Carr's stats are the same as Justin Herbert's. And
Wow.
pretty much across the board, they both have losing records. They almost have identical statistics. And he's not even on this list at all.
No, because he's not a solid starter.
There's that, okay? And then if you want to add the additional part, with Kirk Cousins, can we just pull this up here? And I really like Matt Stafford, but if you look at Kirk Cousins versus Matthew Stafford, Cousins is better in every category. And when you look at Matthew Stafford, he won the Super Bowl in his 13th year. Kirk is going into his 13th year. So it took him a long time. It took him
and also had a stacked team, had, 2 of the best wide receivers, had one of the best offensive head coaches, great defense, like actual weapons, an actual team. Kirk Cousins has none of that. Okay, he's been with he had majority of his career with the Commanders. And then he went to Minnesota, had success, even with a defensive head coach who got fired. Okay, he's only had a couple weapons for like a couple seasons in his career. Kirk Cousins is a legit quarterback.
A long time to win, and he has a losing record. Kirk head-to-head is better. He's got more Pro Bowls. He's better in every category. And I like Matthew Stafford, but to put him in that top force multiplier category, what happened in all those years in Detroit where usually elite quarterbacks dramatically change an organization?
And I defend him for not having success in Detroit.
Yeah, I agree. Stafford should not be up there. Now, you changed it. You did change it. Well, from star to force multiplier. Because I will say this.
Luddites didn't understand.
Brock Purdy is a potential star. Like yesterday, you had potential star. You even had star trajectory. I think he could be on star trajectory, but at the very least, potential star. Force multiplier is a little different. We haven't seen him have to do that, so I'm with you there. But the Prince, at this point, I think the Prince should probably be, Nick, and I'm trying to be fair here, potential force multiplier, because he hasn't shown us enough to say that he looks like a force multiplier. He did at Clemson his last year there. Let's see this graphic, because you got one guy that's way down there at the bottom of the graphic and one guy that's at near the top. But Brock Purdy's been way better in everything.
Listen, I am very, very confident.
Well, and again, like I always bash the statistics. Like I don't like this because especially 2023, we know Trevor was banged up multiple times. And Brock Purdy has the better team, the better weapons, the better head coach, the better offensive mind, even though Doug Peterson has indeed won a Super Bowl. But come on. Like that's why I think books are always cooked. And that's why I always never just rely on one argument, on just one thing of like, look at the stats, this is what it is. No. It's a lot deeper than that. It's not just this one thing. And so even though I was defending Brock Purdy should be higher and Trevor should be lower, I don't use those stats as an indicator for my point. Because again, as good as Brock Purdy did, and I've cheered Brock Purdy, if Trevor Lawrence was on that team, Trevor Lawrence would have more success than when he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And again, Trevor Lawrence has gotten hurt. Like it was like 4 weeks in a row with like 4 completely different injuries, like something crazy. So, what do you want Trevor Lawrence to do, honestly?
that my faith in the Prince will be one of my all-time Category 2 opinions. And I know that front offices agree with me. The Jags agree with me.
I also just want to add, stop acting like that this is like your own unique opinion. He was the #1 pick and was a college stud. So let's not act like if Trevor Lawrence ends up being a great quarterback that like Nick was so smart and had the foresight. Like let's relax on that here. My God.
Gatorade. The draft process rivals Gatorade. Justin Herbert, who saw him take a 27-point lead and shove it. I know all those people agree with me. That's everyone else on this table
I'm just saying,
doesn't need
he
to.
should drop to potential.
Well, the potential is guys who haven't played.
And just to add to Bruce, what he said about Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy right now has a 7.2 quarterback or touchdown percentage. That's third all-time in the history of the NFL.
Nobody's saying it's because of the Avengers.
Right, and you
I
agree
get
with
that,
me.
But now we're 2 years into it. His win-loss percentage is incredible. His numbers have been incredible.
Head-to-head with Mahomes.
He showed that he can come back, come from behind.
Yeah.
I'm starting to turn the corner on Purdy.
No,
Thank
you're
you,
not.
Coach.
I watched
like that.
You were sitting next to me watching the Super Bowl. At no point did you think he was going to play great. I was sitting with you.
Play great.
No, he did not.
Very well.
No,
He played good. He didn't play great.
Maybe
just like
Jacksonville
Jimmy
would have been in the Super
G, he
Bowl if
had
they
the
had Brock Purdy.
game-winning touchdown pass available to him, and he missed it. And we killed Jimmy G for it rightfully, and Purdy gets a pass. You know why he gets a pass? Because everybody knows he's a limited player.
I thought it was solid.
It was good.
That's it?
I thought, yeah.
The graphic?
I thought it was good.
It's a different. We shouldn't even
I think we got to
compare it to yesterday's.
It's the same
It's a
thing
totally
with different
graphic.
names.
So you're
So yeah, I mean, there's no more to be said, quite honestly. But let me just put this graphic reel up for you guys, because then I'm just gonna ask the question. You know, what do you guys think about this? You know, do you think it's a good list? Do you think, you know, where would you move players? And I agree with what Brew was saying. It was different when they said star, when he changed it to star and force multipliers. So I agree. It is a little bit better with these change in categories, which Nick clearly concedes. That's why he changed it. But I still take issue with, like, which again, I've criticized Dak a lot, but I don't put Dak and Hurts, you know, and Cousins and Goff in the same category, and Purdy, you know, as Geno Smith. Baker Mayfield was hanging on by a thread in the league. Okay, you know, like what are we talking about here? It just doesn't make sense to me, quite honestly. So yeah, I would really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this one. But let me know in the comments below whether you agree or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm, and it helps combat the haters. Thank you so much, and see you next time.